What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to yet another episode of Fireside Knicks with your host, Dylan Backer. And today, I want to talk about the Knicks starting five. They looked brilliant the other night against Indiana after a rough opening night, obviously, where they lost by 30 to the Boston Celtics. But on Friday night in the home opener against the Pacers, they looked tremendous, blowing out the Pacers by nearly 30 points, being up by double figures for pretty much the entire second half. They just looked phenomenal all around in the starting five, and I really want to just talk about really the capability that they have as a group. I think we got a good glimpse of what that starting five is supposed to look like. Opening night was a very big, whoa, what's going on here? Why are they getting absolutely destroyed by the Boston Celtics? But against Indiana, they looked like the unit that we are expecting out of them, to be that great starting five with a lot of depth, a lot of great pieces that can really, really kill you on any given night. And I think we really saw a positive impact from all five starters. All five of them scored in double figures in this game. Four of them had 20 plus points, including Jalen Brunson leading the way with 26, and he was a plus 36 in the game as well. So we continue to see more dominance from Brunson, which is great, but I'm happy that we're seeing an impact from the other guys as well. Karl-Anthony Towns had a double-double. He had 21 points and 15 rebounds. But perhaps the guy that I really want to talk about is Josh Hart, and of course Mikal Bridges too. I want to talk about both those guys. But I'll get to Josh Hart first, because this guy, in the preseason, he had 2 points total through the first 5 games of the preseason, and there was a whole big thing about whether or not he should continue starting, whether or not Deuce McBride should, take that starting spot from him, because Hart's not exactly a guy who's willing to score the basketball like that, and he's kind of standing around there, and they're not really taking him seriously as an offensive threat. But he was great against Indiana, and I think we saw really what he provided a lot last year during the playoffs. When he stepped up, he started to score more, and he was providing a positive impact in all the other areas that he normally does as well. And we saw that a lot on Friday night against Indiana. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. He was a plus 35 in the game. He took 15 shots, which is 9 more shots than he did the entire preseason. So really was impressed with that performance as well from Hart. I think really seeing him do that and actually have an impact in the starting five is what we want to see, because I know there was a lot of concerns, as I just alluded to, about where exactly he fits in the starting five, and even Josh Hart himself had questioned it. And then, of course, he came out and said he was just playing around and that he, was perfectly fine with the starting five. He's happy with his role. So who knows at this point what Josh Hart says in the media to take seriously? I mean, he's one of those guys that's, you can't exactly always take serious, so I'm not going to buy too much into that. But regardless, the performance on the court was a very good one. I'm really happy to see him have an impact on not only, of course, offensively, but defensively. And I'm going to get into, what the starting five is capable of on both sides of the ball as well. But I do want to mention Mikal Bridges, of course, next, because he did have 21 points in this game against Indiana, and he, was really efficient with the shot. He was creating his own shots in the mid-range. He wasn't shooting as many threes. I think he only took 3 threes in this game, and he sunk 2 of them, which is good. That's good efficiency, but overall he was 8 of 12. He was really taking advantage of the fact that he knows he's bigger than a lot of the other guys on the court, and that he can create those mismatches and create his own shot, really. And I thought that was really nice to see. He was getting to his spots in the mid-range, getting inside, attacking down the lanes, and of course playing good defense as well. So really a much improved performance from both of those guys. I know Josh Hart has scored in double figures in both regular season games, but after seeing the preseason and him barely being involved, and of course with Bridges as well and the whole jump shot issues that were going on during the preseason, I'm really pleased to see that both of those guys were having a great impact against a good Pacers team. I mean, this Pacers team was the same one that knocked the Knicks out of the playoffs last season, so it was really encouraging to see those guys actually come out there and play their games. These guys look like they're starting to gel a little bit now. On opening night, it seemed like, looked like a lot of these guys had not played together, which is true. They have not played together, and you could kind of see that. But against Indiana, it looked like these guys have been playing together for a while. They looked like really, really fluid offensively. Putting up 123 points is kind of the indicator of that, but they were also very efficient as a unit. They shot over 50% from the floor and 44% from 3, and got contributions from everybody. I've mentioned, of course, the 4 guys I've talked about, but OG Anunoby also contributed as well with 14 points of his own, and I'm pretty sure they all were in double figures before halftime. So the fact that every single one of those guys is making a contribution in the starting five, the sky is the limit, really, for this offense. I mean, I think the biggest question mark, really, was Hart. What is Hart going to do? How many points is he going to average? And I know we've even discussed it on this channel before about where exactly does he fit. We've had discussions about maybe perhaps that he should go off the bench and Deuce should start, just because, Hart provides all the little things that the bench could use, because the bench doesn't have a lot of size. They don't have a lot of rebounding right now because of the injuries to Precious Achiuwa and Mitchell Robinson, so they're missing quite a lot of, impact areas off that bench. But I have made the argument in the past too that having Hart in the starting five is still impactful because you want him to be able to have all those little things to go along with these other four guys that are going to be able to score close to 20 points a game, just because it makes your starting five that much more complete, right? But now that Hart is getting involved in scoring, the sky really is the limit. I mean, if Hart's going to keep doing this, of course I'm not expecting him to drop 20 points every single game. I can't expect that because it's just not who he is. It's not the type of player he is. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and always put up 20 points. As a matter of fact, he might not even reach double figures that often. But the fact that he was, already doing that, and really we kind of saw what he did in the playoffs last year on Friday night against Pacers, I'm encouraged. I feel better about how I did during the preseason because I was honestly really concerned about it, just being honest with you guys, because he wasn't shooting the ball a lot. He was obviously not taking any shots whatsoever. 2 points across 4 games in the preseason, 6 total shot attempts. I mean, I understand this is a guy whose shot attempts are going to come very limited. He's not going to get a lot of opportunities to be able to put the ball in the basket. When you have Towns and Brunson out there, that already limits you. But then you have Bridges, who has experience as a top option, and of course now he's the third option. They're going to get these guys the ball. They're going to make sure that they're getting the ball the most. And of course, OG being one of the better catch and shoot 3-point shooters in the league, with also some underrated finishing to him, they're going to make sure he gets a fair share amount as well. So that kind of leaves Hart as like the where is he going to fit, right? What is he going to be able to do? How is he going to be able to, have a positive impact when you're obviously going to get the most touches to the guys I just named? Well, it seems like they found a way. I mean, every single one of those guys in the starting five made a positive contribution. Every single one of them. Obviously the bench did its job as well, but I want to mainly talk about the starting five here because I know there was a lot of concerns about it. I think on paper we all knew that they were going to be very well and they were going to match up well with other good teams in the league because it is a deep starting five. It's a very deep one. You basically have every area addressed with that starting five, but you want to see them gel together, and I think we saw that on Friday against Indiana, and I really think we can see that a lot more the rest of the season, which I'm hoping for, of course, because we of course want to see, our main guys take over games and have great games, but we also want to most importantly see these guys play well together because it is a brand new team, and it is interesting fits for some of these guys, especially for a guy like Bridges, who just was a first option for a year and a half in Brooklyn, and now he's going to kind of circle back to the role he was taking on in Phoenix. And then, of course, Josh Hart, as I've been talking about, kind of trying to figure out exactly where he even fits. Seeing them actually make an impact, though, is a great sign, and I'm really happy about it. And one thing I want to, move on to next, of course, I've been really harping on the offensive stuff, but the defense. The defense was great on Friday against Indiana. After, quite frankly, a dreadful defensive effort against Boston, it was great against Indiana. I mean, they allowed Indiana to make 3 threes. 3 on 30 attempts. That's 10%. They also held Tyrese Halliburton scoreless, and I think that's really, really great to see because we know that this team is capable of being a very strong defensive unit. When you have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby out there together, you're already going to have a great defensive core right there. And of course, Josh Hart is a very underrated off-ball defender, so that's another thing too. When you have these guys actually communicating on defense, getting to their spots, and actually rotating to where they need to be and not being slow on them like they were against Boston, how are you going to beat this team? I'm just being honest. It's going to be very tough to beat the Knicks on a nightly basis. I think really what we saw on Friday is what we expect out of this team. We're expecting this team to be a great unit offensively and a great unit defensively. We've talked about it many times, but this team is really capable of being really, once again, what they were last year, a top 10 team offensively and defensively. I think they were one of 3 or 4 teams to do that last year, and I think they can do it again this year. And if anything, if they're going to be able to mesh like this offensively especially, and have each guy contribute a decent amount of points, 4 guys with 20 points in the starting 5, and an additional 14 from OG, they could end up being the number 1 offense. I mean, so far through these first 2 games, they've really shot the ball very well. I mean, they've shot over 50% in both games, so they've really been efficient. It's just the defense was a bit of a big concern on from the Boston Celtics game because Mikal Bridges, quite frankly, was getting absolutely cooked by Jason Tatum. I don't understand why they didn't put OG Anunoby on him. I understand, of course, we've discussed it already, but I understand when you have Bridges out there, you kind of have the opportunity to be like, okay, maybe let's see how he can handle this guy. Well, Tatum was giving him buckets left and right, so I don't understand why they exactly kind of stuck with that. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I'm not, going to look too far into it because it was just one game, and clearly all the concerns I had about this team after the opening night game, which, I know some people were overreacting. I wasn't necessarily overreacting because I know this is a brand new team and they need to kind of, gel together a little bit on both sides of the ball. I think offensively it's more important to gel because, defensively you're able to individually kind of figure things out, but you still need to be able to communicate on that end of the floor, so it's not like, a total thing. It's not like you can totally be a non-communicator on that end, but I think you guys get my point. What you really want to see, though, is just both sides working, right? And both sides were clicking against Indiana. Both sides were. I mean, they really, honestly, after the first quarter, they just took over. Indiana had no answer for them whatsoever. And I think this really goes to show you just how depleted they were last season again in the playoffs against the Pacers. Because, credit to the Pacers, they did their job and they beat the Knicks and they played well offensively that series and had good defense as well. But the Knicks were missing so many guys, yet they still pushed them to 7 games. I mean, seeing how they just performed with this healthy starting five, and and obviously a different look to the starting five, but it's a much improved starting five in my opinion. This starting five can really be special. I mean, it really can. Obviously I'm not going to sit here and act like it's the best starting five that the Knicks have ever had, but it's already up there for one of the best because you really have everything right there addressed, as we've always been talking about. You have 2 all NBA level scorers in Brunson and Towns. You have Mikal Bridges, who has proven to be a steady number 1 option as offensively and also being a great defender. OG Anunoby, an all NBA level defender, a solid catch and shoot 3-point shooter, capable of giving you 15 points a game with the elite defense. And then Josh Hart, the Swiss Army knife, as we've been talking about a lot in this episode, giving you the rebounds, giving you some points in transition, the playmaking, the off-ball defense, the hustle. All that stuff goes a long way. It really can't go unnoticed. And I think really overall I was really pleased with what I saw against Indiana, and I think it really is the limit for this team on both sides. I think they can be a fantastic unit defensively and be an amazing unit offensively. I really think that, we're obviously not going to see nights like this nightly. There's going to be nights where they really struggle defensively or they really struggle offensively, we kind of already seen that once this year against Boston. They really struggled defensively in that game, but they were good offensively. There's going to be nights where it's vice versa, where they're playing good defense but they can't score. It's going to happen. But if we see nights like how they did it on Friday against the Pacers more often, I'm really excited for what this team can do. Because you could argue that this wasn't even like, the star player's best games, because Jalen Brunson had 26 points, but we're numb to that at this point. We expect Jalen Brunson to be putting up 30 to 40 points a night. And Karl-Anthony Towns is a career 22 point per game scorer, a guy who's averaged 25 points per game multiple times in his career. So we expect, lots of points from these guys. But when they're able to just, give you some 20 points, and when the other guys can also give you 20, and you end up winning by 25 points in total, that's great. I like the balance. I like that there's cohesion. It seems like they're finally starting to gel together a little bit, kind of getting some practices in. They looked like they actually were comfortable playing next to each other. They didn't look like they were kind of lost or trying to figure out what exactly their role on offense is. And I don't think they're even completely done yet figuring that out. I think really they're still definitely trying to kind of figure out what their roles entirely are, but I think this was a great start to it. I think this was a good idea of kind of trying to see just how each guy fits on the court and what each guy can do. And I think really, if this is going to be a nightly thing where guys are, kind of splitting the shots up a little bit, each of them are giving you 20 plus points or 15 plus points, whatever it is, then if that's going to lead to more wins, then by all means I'll take it. Even if that means certain guys' scoring averages go down, if they end up winning more games doing this with a more balanced attack on both sides, then that's all I can ask for. All I want at the end of the day is wins. I don't really, care that much about the individual statistics, so we'll just see what happens from there. But guys, I don't have much else to say about this Indiana game. I just wanted to really talk about the starting five because I think really this unit is a special unit when they really are clicking, and I think we got a great glimpse of that the other night, so I just wanted to talk about that. Their next game, though, is tomorrow night against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which should be another interesting game. That one's going to be at Madison Square Garden, so I'm really looking forward to that, and yet another playoff rematch. Of course, their first 3 games of the season are against playoff teams from last year, so they've been put to the test early, Both games, quite frankly, have not been close for them. One of them a really bad loss, but then they responded very well with a great win against the team that knocked them out last year. So I'm hoping that they can continue that trend against Cleveland on Monday, because it seems like that they're starting to get their motions together. So I'm really looking forward to that. But guys, like I said, I don't have much else to say, so this is a good place to wrap it up. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, of course, this YouTube video, this YouTube page that you were watching the video on. We really hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know what you think about the starting five in the comment section below. I would love to hear about it. You can follow my personal Twitter accounts right there on the screen, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.